Hi there, welcome to the Halftime Huddle Part 2 Technology. We're having a little bit of a hiccup this time, a hiccup last week, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it's going to go smoothly now. So, welcome to the Halftime Huddle, halfway through the week, hump day, opportunity to spend a bit of time reconfiguring after starting the week with all good intentions, getting to Wednesday and thinking, where has a week gone? So, this is the opportunity. It's an opportunity to share some tips and tricks and like today, an opportunity for me to spend some time in conversation with some great people who are on the coalface doing the businesses, working time to day. So today we have Rachel Extance, who I met a number of years back in a mastermind we were both part of, and we've been connected ever since, on and off, watching each other. So without further ado, welcome, Rachel.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me.
Good, good. We have been, like I said, I was going to go with a big old full history of where we've been and what we done together. But I think so. This is about you, so I'm very keen to understand how people get into what they're doing. So their origin story. What is the and also what is the spark? A comic book geek here. The spider that bit Peter Parker. What is the spark that got you to be where you're going to and how you've pivoted, because I'm interested in how you pivoted, which is a spoiler for those people. Do listen along. So welcome,
Yeah,
Rachel.
absolutely. Hi. I started out as a journalist. I've always been a writer, and that's my sort of superpower really is writing. And so when I was thinking about what I want to do for a career, journalism seemed to be like the most sensible thing. So I started off on a weekly and then moved to a daily. And local government reporting was the thing that I really took a shine to. I absolutely loved going along, sitting in meetings, hearing what people were doing, what the impact of that was, seeing what it looked like from the outside. So for the people on the street, what it meant for them, and how you explained really what things which might feel a little bit removed from you. People always say, I don't do politics. What is it about politics that you actually do, and how do you get involved, and how that affects people's lives, and also how people can influence politics and what they can do when something is happening which maybe they don't like or they think should be done differently, or they can see that there's a gap and something needs to happen, and that interaction between the general public and politicians, and how all that happens. Um, so that was really what I loved doing, and that brought me to Cambridge, which is where I still live, as local government correspondent on the Cambridge Evening News. And from there, I moved on to the news desk, so deciding which stories went in the paper, and then I became editor of the website. So again, deciding which stories were going on the homepage, which stories were going elsewhere, how you directed people through the website, what we were building lifestyle content as well, and social media was starting to take off at that point. So we were learning about what you did with social media to get people to come onto your website, and SEO and things like that. And then when I was on maternity leave with my second child, redundancy came knocking. And I thought, right, let's go off and see what the world has to offer then. And I started out as social media manager. Discovered that I didn't really like doing social media management. It didn't really work with my brain. But when I started going to networking events and talking to people, you'd be having a lovely chat, and then somebody would suddenly go, "Oh, you're a journalist," and they'd pitch a story, and I'd say, "Well, that's not really, you know, what I think you should be talking about. I think you should be talking about that really interesting thing that we were just having a conversation about." So that's what made me realize that storytelling was a key component of communications that maybe people didn't quite understand or didn't realize they could do. And I'm always, whenever people are talking to me about things or I see something, I realize, there are so many stories that people could be telling that maybe they don't realize, or they don't have time for, or they have overlooked because they're so close to their businesses and what they're doing. And we all do this. I do this as well. We all overlook what's close to us and what our superpowers are, because I know superpowers is one of the things that you talk about on this show. And we tend to discount the things that we're good at. So that sort of led me down the path that I'm on now. So I went into copywriting, so writing for people, but also helping people to write for themselves. I really believe that if you can write, and there are, certain things where once you've got the formula, you are able to write. And it's a skill that you can use in so many different areas of your life, and it will work for any business you do. It doesn't matter how you pivot. Once you've got those basic skills in place, you're able to write about anything really. So that's where my business got to. And then taking my own advice, I was working with a coach before Christmas and talking about what I was into and my journalism career and everything. And they said, that's not something you talk about at all. That's not anywhere on your website. And I thought, oh, that's a really good point. So I'm moving into public affairs communications, which means that I help organisations working in public policy, in research, or the third sector to talk about what they do and the impact of their work so that they can get buy-in. And it's both helping people internally and externally. So internally, making sure that everybody understands what different teams are doing so they can see where there's synergy and where there's collaboration. You don't get people doubling up. But also helping people to communicate what they're doing more effectively. So I do writing and storytelling workshops. And then externally, what are the messages that you're sharing outside the organization? How are you getting people involved in that? I write website copy, I do brochures, and I talk about communication strategy. And I also have a lovely membership called Rachel's Writing Club for consultants. So if you want to write, keep meaning to write, but find that you get to the end of the week and the writing still hasn't happened, Rachel's Writing Club is there to support you with that. I do Monday Marketing Mojo. So it's a little bit like the halftime huddle, but we do it at the start of the week. It's, getting yourself in a good place at the start of the week, having done some marketing. We have a prompt each week and a little bit of a chat, and then you write something about that. And then there's co-working time as well, so that you can come along and get your writing done. It's not something which is always going down the list, because there's always a time when you can come and write with me. So that is the basic summing up of me and my business.
And I love how and this is one of the things which is why I like to listen to people's stories, and which is, echoing what you talk about, is we all love to hear people's stories. I love to hear the evolution of a story, and very often the story comes in full circle. It starts off one way, migrates along another route, and then comes back to almost where you started, because there's very much a journey that goes on in people's personal and business evolution.
Yes.
And you wouldn't be doing what you were doing unless you'd taken that journey along the way. You wouldn't be where you are now unless you'd taken that journey. So it's lovely to hear that story. And more power to you, Elbow, for helping people share their stories. And you very much did that with me. You helped me with my about page, which is one of the pages that is a very difficult page for people to focus on when they're, we're taught to be, self-deprecating. We're taught not to blow your own trumpet, etc. But where the about page is the one place where you're supposed to blow your own trumpet. And so it's very difficult sometimes for us to spend some time doing that, and you were very good about that. And I noticed coming up on, and we're going to talk about social media a bit as we go along, on one of your posts you've got something coming on about helping people with an about page from sharing in a co-working space you were at last time.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah,
yes. So
hear about that experience as well.
There's an organisation called Co-work Crew, created by Joe and Penny Pickering, who are a lovely couple, and they were looking for co-working. And I don't know what your experience of co-working has been, but I've always been, because you work on your own, you're at your desk in your house, and it can get a little bit stir crazy after a while, and you'd like somebody to turn around and have a coffee with, those water cooler moments or whatever. And Joe and Penny came up with this idea of once a month having co-work crew, and you go along to a co-working space. So it is very much you turn up, you plug your laptop in, you're there to work, but it's a great way of getting to chat to people as well. So the one in Cambridge has got a lovely kitchen, and everybody knows, if you're in the kitchen, you're up for a chat, and if you're sitting at your table in front of your laptop, you've got your head down and you're busy doing things, and you can choose when you take your breaks and what you do. So it's very much choose your own adventure kind of a thing. And then they have a lunchtime talk, and so I'm doing the lunchtime talk next month, all about 4 questions to ask yourself to help you write your about page. And I do think that the about page is one of the most difficult things to do. We tie ourselves up in knots about it. You're sitting there going, right, so this is a page all about me. I don't want to tell anybody anything about me. What do people want to know about me? And it is something where, we are conditioned from a very early age not to do it. And it's just so unhelpful. And that combined with English lessons where somebody marked you with a red pen and, didn't particularly support you in what you were trying to do, your vision of where you were trying to go wasn't the thing the teacher was interested in. The teacher was interested in, have you ticked off these things that are on their syllabus? And so, these experiences do not prepare us particularly well for writing an about page. But I think people have so much interesting things to share, and it really is what makes you stand out in a world where it can feel, particularly on social media, like everyone's a coach, because of course the algorithm goes, oh, you write about coaching, you'd like to hear about coaching, I'm going to show you posts from other coaches so that you can hear all the amazing things they say about coaching. And then you can get really, really stressed about the fact that everybody else is a coach and they've got these ideas and they're doing these things and they're going to these places and they've got all this work, and so it's one of the things that it just doesn't particularly help you. But actually who you are, your experiences, what you've read, what you've done, how you think about the world, those are all the things that make you stand out. And that's what I love about an about page, is that opportunity to pull those threads and for you to really show and shine about what your superpowers are and what makes you brilliant to work with. And we all want to be able to have a conversation with the person that we're working with. We don't want to feel like we're on the back foot, or they have all of the knowledge and we don't have all of the knowledge, or am I able to have a random conversation with this person about the gig I went to last week, or the football match over the weekend, or where they're going on holiday? These are the things that make it a lot easier to work with somebody, as if you know that you're going to get on with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
and I think co-work crew as well is a great way of you finding a bunch of people and having these conversations, going, oh, I really like you. Yes, I'd happily refer work to you.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And you're right when we talked about the fact that we like to talk about, superpowers here. And again, part and parcel of that is my comic book geek, inner geek coming out. And my wife came and told me that I'm not an inner geek at all. I'm a complete and out there open geek. So
there's a lot to be said for being completely open and out there geek. Yeah, and I think that's one of the lovely things that's changed over the last certainly 10 years, possibly 20 years, is that we have moved away from everybody should have this professional thing, and we should all be going through the motions. And actually, when we let our inner geek out, whatever form that takes, magic happens, because you attract the people that go, oh, I feel like that, I think like that, oh, I love that show too. And that's when you start to make more connections.
Absolutely, completely. And it's that openness to share yourself. And we had a little bit of a giggle beforehand, because I also like to talk about people's kryptonite as well, which is another geek. And you say, well, I'm going to have to think about that. It's a typical, when you go for an interview, can you tell me your strengths and weaknesses? And people in the cold, dark room of their thing, they know their weaknesses. They know what's going on. They know their kryptonite. They know what they're not very good at, etc. But it's very hard to come face to face with that in front of people. But it's the thing that often I see when I'm having these sort of conversations it's people's kryptonite that helps them, and often turns into their superpower. It's often the thing that spurs them to move and go on to things. So you often find
Mm.
that the reason they're doing what they're doing is because there's a little bit of a the pearl metaphor of a little bit of grit in the shell that they itch it and they scratch and they get better at it, and all of a sudden it turns into something that's wonderful. And also you are sometimes better off focusing on the things you're good at and not focusing on the things you're bad at, and helping. The world is full of other people who can help and support you with that. So if you
Mm.
recognize where you have an area that you don't like, or the thing that makes you feel you're not happy to do all the time, but you know it has to be done, then finding someone to do it is a great thing. So self understanding of that is important and key. So and sharing that, it's not that there's no,
Yeah.
like exactly what you said. It's the facade of suit and tie, doing things the right way and the proper way, etc., is sort of disappearing now. People understand and recognize that it's not about what you look like, or what impression you put on. It's what you do and how you interact with people. And
And the opportunities for innovation that come from that, the breakthroughs that people get from realizing that, you don't have to fit in the box, and that thinking in different ways and encouraging people into a team who maybe you might not have, thought of before, listening to more people really sparks ideas that before maybe would have been missed, because you're like, oh, we've got a hierarchy and we only do it like this. And, I think opportunities for democratizing things more now does lead people in different directions and creates great products and services which really catch people's imagination and they can run with, rather than people saying, oh, well, you have to stay in your lane and you have to do this, and you're the person that sits over there and you do that, and we're not going to invite you into the meeting, or we're not going to listen to your idea over coffee, or you can only do this one thing. I think portfolio careers are an amazing thing, because we're not only one thing. We don't have one string to our bow. We've got lots of different ways of doing stuff. And I think that's really important. But also going back to your kryptonite idea, the uncomfortability, yes, it can sometimes make us stuck, but it can also push us forward.
yes, it very much. It's often that itch, that thing in the background, that thing that you're constantly trying to find a way to put some salve on it, or fix it, or move in it. And you talked originally about coaches, and lots of coaches out there. A lot of time the challenge you face when you have your when you're trying to sell people on some of the pains that they're facing, is they've spent so much time finding a workaround for it. They think it's there in the background. They don't necessarily think it's a pain that they need to A, share, and B, properly fixed, because they've spent so much time trying to put cream on it to
Mm.
scratch it, etc. So they've got to sort of, they know it itches, they know they put cream on it and move on, rather than spending the quality time, like you suggested, with a coach or someone who can help and support them, to find the right cream, the right solution, to find out why it's itching in the first place.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a very hard thing to, and understanding where it is, where that little niggle, that little grain of salt is, that little thing that you find difficult, or you don't like to do, or you avoid, or you procrastinate around, is a key way of finding a better way to solve that.
And asking for help is hard as well. We're taught we should be self-reliant, and we also are effectively taught not to ask questions. Everything in the system is designed for you not to keep on asking questions, for you to just settle down and accept things and go with the program, because that's very easy for the people that are managing you. And it means that when it comes to something like running your own business, you've got a wealth of things you don't know, but you're almost scared to say, I don't understand how this works. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. People start throwing all sorts of different terminology at you, and you're like, oh, is that a thing I'm supposed to have? Do I need to have done that before I can do this? And yeah, you can get yourself tied up in knots about it.
Absolutely. Which swapping back to the co-working thing, finding a group of people to spend time asking the small questions. There's a statement about when the best time to build a well for for protection for the future is when the sun's shining, when it's when it's okay, when it's not, you don't need it, etc. Because as soon as you need it, it's almost too late to start doing that and getting the water up,
Mm.
etc. So getting working that muscle by asking some simple things, small things, the things that aren't the break and the make or break type questions that you're going to potentially face down the line, gets you used to asking help for help and having people around that you get to know, to trust, that can give you that kind of mini micro support along the way.
Mm.
Builds you that muscle to know who to leverage when you have that, because we're all going to get that stage where we need to ask the big question, and we need to
Yes.
help have people to support you over something that's a definite a challenge you can't work on your own. And if you haven't been used to asking people for simple things, small things, how do I do this? How do I write that? How do I, have you tried X? All this kind of stuff along the way. It isn't a make or break type question once you build
Mm.
that muscle up along the way. So the co-working possibility where you can spend a bit of time building a relationship of trust with some people around you over time is a great muscle, and it's one thing that I notice, and you've moved from the corporate-ish world into the solopreneur type world. We often miss the fact that when we're in some kind of organization of some kind, there's often some support around you.
Yes.
You miss it and forget it about it. You talked about the water cooler moments. There's a time when you can go and have a chat with someone around the water cooler, and just all of a sudden that spark of inspiration comes in, and that little have you tried X what things, and the other kind of support you have around them, that you miss when you move out of that organization.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I think those also, when you become a solo business owner, and okay, you might be building a team, but suddenly you are the business owner. And when, of course, you were in corporate or academia or wherever, you had other people who did all of the things that you don't know how to do, and suddenly you are wearing all of those hats, and it's a lot to suddenly go, oh, suddenly I need to know finance, and I need to know marketing, and I need to know sales, and I need to go networking in rooms that I've not networked in before, and think about how I talk about this topic, which before I was in an organization where everybody knew what I was on about, and now I'm in an environment where maybe nobody knows what I'm talking about, depending on what your specialism is.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm intrigued about your new turn. And before I step back, there is another link that I didn't know we had. I knew that my daughter, and I might have talked about this with you. My daughter's a journalist.
Yes.
She also is very prevalent in the local government. She was one of the BBC's local government. So there's all kinds of links, and that's just the
Yeah.
conversations you don't miss. You miss when you
Yes.
don't have these conversations with other people. So it's intriguing. It's interesting.
Yes.
But back to the pivot you have. How are you finding that? Is it sort of brought a new spark to what you do, or are you really excited about how you're moving forward with that?
Yeah. It's really nice to get back into it, and sort of researching and looking at different topics and things, and um, there's so much happening at the moment. I just think it's a really interesting place to be, and there is lots of, particularly where I live. I live in Cambridge. There's an awful lot of growth and development and things around there. There was a huge announcement a couple of weeks ago, so there's plenty to talk about. And yeah, we shall see where it leads.
Indeed, and so watch this space for people who are watching this, and for those who are watching later on, we'll find out where you can follow and listen to, or listen and read what Rachel's going to. The other thing I loved you talking about is your writing club. I can't remember what you called it. What did you call it?
It is literally called Rachel's Writing Club.
There you go. Fair
Because
enough.
when I was trying to come up with a name, I thought everybody's just going to end up calling it Rachel's Writing Club, so I might as well just call it that.
Indeed, and I love the idea. And I've dipped in and out. I haven't been for a long while, but it's a great it's a great excuse. Like exactly what you said about the halftime huddle. We're halfway through the week, but it's great to start the week off with a good key way of doing things, and spending some time with, like you said, other people, sharing experiences, doing a bit of co-working, realizing that you're not alone. Often, exactly in this situation you're talking about, in an area where it's not your primary focus. I would imagine
Mm,
most of the people in the group, and I seem to remember most of the people in the group, aren't necessarily writers. They're not writing for people. They're experts in their particular field, and they need to share that expertise, and writing is a way to do that, but they're not writers necessarily. Isn't that
yeah.
the case?
Yeah, so they found that they are writers. They didn't mean to be. That wasn't what they set out to be. But then they found that they needed to be writing as part of their business, and it is one of those things where you're not alone. You can come along to the club and you're not alone. You're not. Nobody's gonna say, "Oh, surely you know how to do this," or "Why haven't you done that?" And it's you can bring anything from a "How do I approach this?" to "Where do I share this?" to "I've got an issue and I don't quite know what to do with it." And it is social. It is a nice opportunity to sort of have a chat on a Monday lunchtime, but also get some work done as well, and get that task ticked off. It's that thing of what am I going to post about? What do I do? I've not got any ideas, and I always come up with a prompt that will apply to any business, so that everybody can approach it from different ways. And it's always interesting to hear the different interpretations people have when you sort of put a prompt out. And the conversation can go in a direction that I wasn't expecting at all, which is always fun. But yeah, it is, come along, have some collaboration, have some accountability, and get some inspiration. And then, having the co-working means it's quite an interesting concept called body doubling, which I hadn't really heard of until I started doing it. And someone described it as going to the library with your mates to get your homework done. And it is surprisingly effective that you come along and we're all writing, and you will get whatever it is that you were supposed to be doing done, because everybody else is writing too, and you come with that task in mind, and that is what you sit and do. And it's a lot easier to keep an appointment with me than it is to keep an appointment with yourself, because you can always move yourself aside. You don't, that's fine. I can deprioritize myself while I prioritize somebody else's business. But we all need to be working on our own businesses, because otherwise we don't have that business. The harvest comes and we're like, hang on a minute, what happened there? So it's a good way of doing that. And I do genuinely believe, there are all sorts of different ways of promoting your business, all kinds of things you can do. But writing is such a useful task, whether you are actually writing blog posts, or whether it is that you're thinking about script or podcasts or speeches or anything like that. If you can write down your thoughts, if you can marshal your thoughts, that is really, really going to help you. It helps you in pitches. It helps you when you're out networking. It is one of those skills which has so many different uses. You don't have to be a quotes writer. People get hung up about, don't I have to write something really, really long? And no, you don't. You really don't have to write something long at all. You can do microblogging. That's where Twitter started, and it was absolutely genius when it first started out with Twitter. You can do a lot with not having to say huge amounts of things. You don't have to waffle on, but you do need some way of people understanding who you are, what you do, and how it is relevant to them, because otherwise you're really going to struggle to grow your business, because people won't know that you're there when they're thinking of somebody who does what you do. You need to be able to come to mind, and writing will help with that, whether it is that you are putting out blog posts or not.
Absolutely. And when you were talking about short forms, it reminded me of a quote. I think I mentioned probably in a previous event about um, attributed to a number of people who've probably used it about I would have written you a shorter letter if I had more time. And that's the thing,
Yes.
Twitter is one of those things where sort of short and sharp
What,
and
Mark
stuff like that can be
Twain?
quite difficult. It, and I'm
I can't remember.
gonna go down. It is Mark
I'm
Twain.
not gonna.
It is Mark Twain that it's attributed to, but I think it comes from and this is again another geekishness for me. If I see a quote, I need to find out who it is. I think it's
Mm.
Blaise Pascal, the Pascal's triangle. I think originally
Okay.
attributed
But
from what
yeah,
I saw.
writing something short. People go, "Oh, it's only a little thing." It's like, actually, writing something short is really difficult because you have to be able to take all of that information and distill it down into that little tiny paragraph. That is a thing that you learn to do as a journalist. Yes, you've got your big set pieces, but you also have your news and briefs. You have to be able to get a key story across in 100 words or less, and that there's a skill to that.
Absolutely, absolutely, and which is, and there's that's a useful not just in writing and journalism, but you talked about networking and the ubiquitous 60-second pitch is for most people exactly what you say. You do a lot. Your business does a
Clever.
lot, and you can help and support and that stuff. And trying to fit all of that into 60 seconds um, is a challenge for some people. Because they're trying to shoehorn everything into 60 seconds, where you really want to distill it into a small little point, and that takes time and energy and effort.
And what you say will depend on the room that you are in.
Yes, yeah,
What how you introduce yourself in one place will be different to how you introduce yourself to another place, because what you're wanting to do, and this comes back to about pages, what you want to do is connect with your audience. What are your audience looking to do, and how can you help them get there? And that's what you want to be doing when you're introducing yourself.
absolutely. And in the same way, the about page and your pitch is about getting people to take the next step to find out more about
Mm.
you and connect with you and talk to you. Very much in the networking session, the pitch is a tiny little spark for to get people to have the one-to-one more in-depth conversation. You're never going to sell everything you do in 60 seconds. What you're trying to do is lead them on to the next step, which is to come and have a coffee,
Yeah,
virtual
yeah,
or
it's like
otherwise. Yeah.
that conversation starter.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. One of the we have a couple of themes that we run through this, and I am going to touch back to what you talk about. Another theme that's come across in me listening to some of the things that you've gone through over the last couple of months or so. Um, is one of the things we do is to talk about tools and tips and tricks.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of suggested co-working as a great sort of process and tool. Do you have any other tips and tools and maybe even physical, actual tools that
Actual
you would?
tools.
Yeah,
Um, so finding spaces that you really enjoy being in and that move you forward, and that is, you have to kiss a few frogs to find those things. But I have a few things that I really enjoy. So co-work crew is great. I'm in a lovely membership called the Cole Collective, run by a coach called Mike Cole. And we meet on a Monday. It is slightly frantic, my Mondays, because I literally go from one meeting to running my own. But he has a great way of reframing things, and that's so. When you talk about kryptonite, one of my kryptonite things is mindset monkeys. And it's a really good way of sort of going along with your mindset monkey and then sort of knocking it off your shoulder and moving on again. And I'm also in You Are the Media, which is run by a chap called Mark Masters. And it is very much, it sort of does for me what I do for other people. It helps me write. It helps me connect with people. The conversation's always lovely. It's a great group of people. And that's one of the things that keeps me going. And that's they do a co-working session on a Thursday morning. So when you're thinking about your half-time huddle, my get up and go again is Thursday morning. I try and turn up to that and get something knocked off my list. So those are a couple of things that I do in places that I'm in. Actual tools that help. I've started bullet journaling
Ooh,
a couple of months ago. I tried it a few years ago and just could not get my head around it. But I've tried so many different online tools, Trello, Asana, you name it, and I always come back to a notebook. And I sort of got the book. Oh, it might even be on my desk. Hang on a sec. I got this. That doesn't work on the screen. Anyway, figure out where camera is for the next thing. So yeah, I sort of read through it and sort of started learning how to do it. And it's nice. I sort of sit and reflect, which is one of the things that I got from Mike Cole's group, was learning how to reflect properly. And it has my sort of my notes for it, but I sort of sit and write my task lists out, and so I know what I need to be doing because I've actually sat and said it needs to be this. So it helps me with prioritizing. And I always, when I think, what am I going to do next, pick up the journal, look at what's on the list, this is what to do next. So that's one of mine. New tools that I'm sort of loving: Fathom.ai for transcribing meetings. It used to take me ages to transcribe meetings, and Fathom just does it for me, and I can send, and the recording goes straight out to the other person immediately, and it's like, job done, fantastic. I started playing with Notion again, which is something which I'd also got. I got too complicated with it. I kind of went into it, and there were, I don't know whether you've played with Notion, but there are all sorts of templates and things that you can do, and it looks amazing. And you've clicked all these buttons and you've got this total mess. So I sort of started it again, and I just have a documents file, and I tag my documents, and I can see where everything is, and it's all searchable. So I'm trying that as a way of sort of keeping myself on track and organized. And then to pick up something that somebody asked at Co-work Crew last week, where somebody said, can you recommend accounting software? Free Agent is my tool of choice, because it works with my brain, and it's all visual, and I can see exactly what's where. So yeah, those are my tools for my business that I absolutely love.
And I'm loving those. They're great tools. I've recently started playing with Notion a little bit as well. And you're right. So some of these tools, and you talked about Trello. Trello is another one of my favorites, but Trello is another one of those things where its strength is its flexibility, and its weakness is its flexibility. And the same goes for Notion. Its strength is you can do all kinds of wonderful things with it. But that's the problem, because you can do all these wonderful things with it, and you can get yourself tied into a huge knot. But
Yes.
and to be honest, it's the same with a bullet journal. I know a lot of people who start a bullet journal thinking they can do everything with it and all kinds of stuff with it. They again tie themselves into a knot because they see all these templates and all these wonderful pictured pages that people use. If you go on the internet and you do a search for bullet journal, you can see some wonderful creative people.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
wonderful, beautiful. Absolutely. And then you look at mine, it's a Scrabble.
Yeah, mine is literally. I did buy coloured pens. I just kept coloured pens out for about a month. I've not used coloured pens for a little while. They do look gorgeous, and I am absolutely in awe of people who do that.
Absolutely.
But mine is literally it's lists and notes. But it helps me keep everything in one place. I know where everything is. I mean, heaven help me if I lose it. But it's it's just, I just download my brain into it and just say, right, that just needs to be written down in the journal. And it's on my desk. It's not out of sight, out of mind. I always found with all of the online tools that I'd sit there and I'd populate them, and I just wouldn't open the thing. It wasn't there, or it was one of the many, many, many tabs on my screen. And that isn't particularly helpful when you're sort of looking at something and you've got all of these tabs. You're just like, oh, what was I doing again? Whereas this is just
which tab is which? Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Nice and straightforward. I opened the book. I was like, it's that one next.
Absolutely, and that completely. And it is also one of those things where you can evolve into it. You can take some simple things, and the simple thing, if all you do with it is a daily list and and Scrabble some notes in it, then that's a good start. And you can then add other bits and bobs. You can do your diaries and your fancy little pages if you want as you go along, and evolve into it.
Yes.
But yeah, so no, I've got my little bullet journal to the side of me.
Yeah.
And I have started using colors. I use a here we go, geeking into. I use a the only thing I use colors is for highlighting header. So it's basically
Yeah.
highlighters,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
what I
it.
do.
That's the only color I add to it. So, yeah, no, there you go. Another plus one for bullet journals from me too. So do have a try. I do other kind of journaling as well, but bullet journal, brilliant. Superb. And you were mentioning there was another thing you mentioned, free agent, and what was the one before? You talked about Notion. You
The
talked
Notion
about
was a Fathom.
Fathom. Yes. Oh, yeah. I must admit, I've I spend a lot of time in Zoom, and Fathom comes up automatically in Zoom, and I often just go away, go away until I started using it, and then I thought, oh my goodness, why haven't I been using it beforehand? Because I sort of felt it was a little bit of an interloper sometimes. It felt
Mm.
a little bit in the way, but the things that it can do is yeah, no, very worth being an interloper for a bit. So yeah, so thank you very much. Great suggestions there. Great suggestions there. We've been, yeah, to be honest, like I said, there's a whole raft of topics that I like to cover over this, and we've sort of come over them a lot in the general conversation. But I'd love to go back to one thing you were talking about. You're talking about social media and how we need to be aware of how we use it and what to use. I recently noted that you were looking at your relationship with Meta. And I'd love to
Mm.
hear a little bit more about that, as this is
Oh
going out
gosh.
on Meta.
It is going out of it. This is one of the weird things, isn't it? That you're using these things while being a bit like, I don't know about these
No,
things.
indeed, indeed.
Um, I mean, I've had a, I'd say I've had a love hate, but it's really more of a hate relationship with Facebook for quite some time now. I dislike their use of data. I dislike the way that it's possible to manipulate people using it. Um, you can all say we are all on Facebook, we are all on YouTube, but what we are all seeing is different. We are not all seeing the same things, and it's very easy to influence us by showing us one thing after another that makes us go, oh, the world looks like this. And actually, the world doesn't look like that. The world can be very different, and what I'm being told the world looks like can be different to what you're being told the world looks like. And, you know, there's a thing in American politics that they call wedge issues, these things that they know that if you pull on that particular thread, some people will jump over this side and some people will jump over that side. And they are very clear things that people are very, very much, I'm either camp A or I'm camp B, and there is no way I'm being in the middle. And social media is one of those things where it's very easy to get you into these different camps, and there isn't that space for finding commonalities, because the algorithm goes, oh, you think that, and if you think that, you must think this, and if you think this, you must think that, and suddenly you are over in camp A or you're over in camp B. And I think it's really bad for us. I think it's very bad for our democracy. I think it's very bad for our ability to think. I am trying to be open-minded about AI. I do use AI, and we've just spoken about Fathom. There are some really good AI things, and in certain areas, it's definitely medical improvements. No denying that. But I think there are also lots of things happening now which we are maybe not aware of are being done to us because it's friendly Facebook that we've had on our phones for 15 years, and we like Facebook, and it's our way of keeping in touch with our friends and family. And we're not taking notice of who's buying those ads, who's putting those things in our feed, why are they putting those things in our feed. The same on Twitter or anywhere where people can pay for your attention. And I think we need to be very critical about thinking about what we're doing and what we're seeing and why we're seeing it, and the effect that has on public discourse and what we see as normal and what we don't see as normal, or what we, I feel certainly in England, the shift from 2012 to now is really quite pronounced in terms of some things that we thought were normal and we now don't think are normal, or some things that we are now led to think are normal. When Donald Trump was elected, there was I heard a podcast where somebody said, you know what, if you were an 18-year-old, Trump is normal because he's been in politics for 8 years, and if you've been listening to politics for 8 years, Trump is normal. And I was like, gosh, that's really interesting, because to me that's not normal, but actually that's not my life. I'm at a different point in time. I've got different history. I've got different influences and things like that. So I think there's a whole load of things around social media where we need to be much more aware of what we're doing, what we're supporting, whose megaphone we are allowing to be a megaphone, and being aware of the fact that people around us are not necessarily seeing, hearing, reading the same things that we are. And that if you're wondering why somebody suddenly says something that makes you go, oh, I didn't realize that you believed that, it's possibly that they're seeing different things to us. And I'm all for, lots of different viewpoints. But I think it's finding those middle grounds. It's finding the things that connect us, not the things that drive us apart, is really important. So that's sort of where my thinking with Meta is going. I was very concerned when they updated their hate speech policies, and there have been a few other things over the last couple of months that just made me go, I'm not entirely sure I want to be here anymore. So I'm experimenting with something called the Fediverse, which is a less connected kind of social media, but more of a social media where you get into conversations that you like. So when people always complain about, I used to like Facebook, but you don't get to have this anymore, it's more about going off and finding the things that you do like and the people that you do want to talk to, and having these more grown-up conversations, because you're in a space where people are happy to have conversations, not feel, well, I'm in camp A or I'm in camp B. So I set up a group on Discord, which attracted me because they have a policy of not selling your data. It's on private servers. Your group is your group, so it's basically like creating a Facebook group, and it looks a bit like an old-fashioned forum, really. So if you've been online for 20-30 years, you will sort of recognize the format. So I'm sort of doing that, and then I'm experimenting with places like Blue Sky and places like Mastodon, and sort of seeing what's out there. And I'm very, very early days for that. So, but I think there's lots of positive things. There's lots of opportunities for us to connect and have great conversations, but we also need to be aware of who are the people who are paying for different things to turn up on your phone screen.
No, you're very right, and there's always that balance when you're trying to find places to congregate and spend time between finding your tribe and also being inclusive and connecting to other tribes and finding other alternatives. And you're very right in that a lot of people forget that places like Facebook, places like now Twitter and other places aren't a public forum. They're out in the open, but they're not a public forum. They're a private forum owned by a private set of individuals for whom their process, their idea is to make money from the products. It's not to share your ideas. It's not to share your opinions. It's to make money, and they make money through ads. They make money through keeping people on it and going through various different different ways of showcasing what people can buy and what people can do, not necessarily to share your opinions and what your opinions. And that's also sometimes you can get hidden. In my opinion, you can get hidden behind the idea that there's a nefarious back feeling about some of these things, wanting to show the wrong things. They're not. They're basically commercial capitalists who want to make lots of money, and whatever makes lots of money, they'll follow that route. And so it is difficult, and it was difficult when you're in the situation where unfortunately some of the people don't always recognize that back understanding. They think what they're reading in Facebook, they think what they're reading in X, they think what they're reading in other kinds of other kinds of social media, newspapers is, and a case in point, it's the same thing. They think that some of that is the real world. It's a view of the real world with a view to sell X.
Yes, absolutely. I'd have thought though, and it's totally abandoned me, which is really annoying. Um, oh, what was that going to be? Yes, it was going to be. My husband always used to joke when I was staying up late on 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 Facebook, was somebody wrong on the internet, and that is, they want you to stay there. They
Yeah.
want you to stay on there and give you their time and attention, whether it's watching silly videos or
Yes.
whether it's arguing with somebody about something, because that's how they make their money. So it's in their interests to come up with things which either keep you entertained or keep you angry.
Yes.
It's not in their interest. They're not interested in you being in touch with your friends and family.
No.
That's not what's helping them.
No. No. Indeed. Indeed. And it's always been, a concern about me. I had already always hoped that some of these places would be a little bit more inclusive and often show you some different things because yeah, I mean I go on some of these things to see what's going on and to do, like you say, connect with friends and family and even though I'm on Facebook, I don't use it as much as, well, to be honest, I don't tell anybody I don't actually use it. I
Not
never
going to tell you.
I never go any. In fact, too late. I have to have Facebook when I'm going this anyhow. Then now, but it's always been a concern of mine or a fear of mine that why aren't they showing slightly different viewpoints just to encourage people to try something different?
Mm,
It's a mindset to try something different, and but they don't. They think this is you. You want more of the same. You want more of the same soup. You want more of the same thing you liked beforehand. But the world is so full of various different opinions, ideas, suggestions, viewpoints that are all interesting, and they're missing a boat sometimes when I think that they don't share these with other people. They don't just all of a
mm,
sudden show something weird and wacky out of left field to get you intrigued into that. Because yeah, again, if they're talking about keeping you on the platform, there are people out there who would follow that little rabbit down that rabbit hole just as easy if they showed them something that they already like and they know they like already. Try and show them
yeah,
something different. Get them following that pulling that thread. But no, they don't do that. They just want to keep you, like you say, either with a smile on your face or ranting.
yeah. And it is, it used to be that with TV you watched whatever was on TV and you had a variety of different things, and now we binge. So
Mm.
we have this one train of thought that we just keep on following, and then it says, "Oh, did you like that? Well, we've got this thing which is very similar. Would you like to watch that too?"
Yes.
And it's and we do we I feel like we're gradually narrowing, and there are so many amazing things out there. There are so many people doing brilliant stuff. We've all got all of these ideas. I feel like AI wants you to outsource thinking, and the magic is in the thinking. How you get the thinking out there, yes, there are tools, there are people that help you with that, but you have to do the thinking in the first place. And I do feel that there's a danger in all of these things where it's just like, oh, we can just magically do this for you. Yes, but where's your voice? Where's your experience? Where's your point of view? Where are the things that your friends and family are talking about that you go, oh, hang on a minute, why is this happening? And then the experiences that we are not aware of, which then get discounted because they're not built into the systems because everything went one direction.
Absolutely, and we're sort of going full circle again to the same sort of thing when we talked about your writing club, where people are getting used to explaining their ideas and sharing their ideas, and the activity of putting these things on paper, whether your paper is a Google Doc or a Word doc or whatever document you
Mm,
electronic document, or it's a bullet journal or a piece of paper.
yeah,
The act of taking that and explaining that into a piece of paper helps you to clarify your ideas. And if you get someone else to do it, it doesn't clarify the ideas in your head.
yeah,
Um, we all know that that actually spending some time trying to explain your expertise as someone who doesn't know what you're talking about, doesn't know your jargon, doesn't know your TLAs, helps you to come to terms with some of the assumptions you have, helps you to clarify what you're talking about in more approachable manner that you wouldn't do if you outsource this to some kind of a second agent, even to a certain extent. And I think it helps to have people do some of this stuff like social media, even copywriters sometimes. You know, outsourcing some of this needs to be, you know, taken pulled back in. Your expression of your ideas is something you need
Yeah,
to keep
absolutely.
as much as you can to yourself. You can help people exactly like you say. AI is good, human copywriters are good, etc. To help you to hone and knock off the rough edges of that those thoughts into something that is a bit more palatable, and you need to be part of that experience as well. But you can't outsource all that to someone else or something else.
No, you have to do the thinking, and that is uncomfortable, and it's partly uncomfortable because your brain has evolved to do as little as it possibly can do. It wants you to be on the autopilot bit of your brain,
Yeah,
not the thinking bit of your brain, because the thinking bit of your brain burns calories and is you know is a much more active thing. So that is, you know, there is an uncomfortability with thinking, but it is what makes the difference. It is what moves us forwards. And if you are outsourcing, yes, absolutely, you need to. The person you're outsourcing to can't magically run on empty. It needs your inputs. They need to know what you think. They need to know how you want to do things. They need to know
yeah,
what your voice is, what you believe in. You know, these things I think are really important, and it is your values, your personality, which is going to make you stand out at the end of the day.
absolutely. And you're right. And much like a good coach is great at helping you um, to identify and pull out some of the challenges you face internally to against some of the challenges you face physically. A good copywriter can help you draw out some of those things and ideas you have inside you. You're not really able to fully explain
Yeah,
until you get someone asking the same sort of questions, asking, you know, why have you done that? Why have you done that? Why is that important to you? And
and they
have
don't
you?
let you dodge.
No, absolutely, 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 completely. Um, it's brilliant. And one thing before we start, and again, we have these conversations, and I could spend a long time chatting here with you. And I know we're both busy, and we've got lots of things to do. But one thing I want to go away before, sorry, I want to address before we go away is the book. I always love to
Mhm.
ask people about a book, and I know what book you're going to choose, and I'm hoping you're still going to choose that book, even though you say you're suggesting another one. Um, and again, I've said this before. I am accrediting Tim Ferriss for this idea of asking someone for a book that they've recommended most often to people and gifted, rather than the book they're enjoying and they like the best, because that's what I'm trying to get is what sort of information and what ideas they want to share with people. So if you'd like to share your book, that would be brilliant.
I really want to share two books, but
Go on then, share two books.
I'll go with the book that I said.
You can do
I
both.
w-
I'm happy for you to do both.
okay,
But don't
so
discount
Rest.
the first one.
Okay, so the first one was Rest by Alex Soo Kim Pang. And it is one of those things where it's almost counterintuitive, but it is about the power of rest and how we need to rest. And we are programmed now that we should be hustle culture and working longer hours and, you know, keep on going. And actually, this book is all about the fact that the amount of genuine deep work you can do in a day is a quite a narrow window. I think it's about 4 hours that you can do of really deep work. And if you look at your day, you will find that actually, you know, if you time track or you bullet journal, you will notice these things that actually the real meaty work of the day took you about 4 hours. And it's got lots of examples of different people, Darwin, Dickens, all kinds of people. I can't remember the guy's name, very famous cartoonist. But anyway, how they create their work and what they did, and yeah, pretty much everybody about 4 hours. And it just really brings in sharp relief that a lot of what we're doing feels busy but isn't necessarily moving you forward. So it's what are the things that you want to do in 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. And it ties in neatly with the Pomodoro technique as well, this thing of doing things in 25-minute bursts. Actually, you can do a lot in 25 minutes. And it's one of the things with the writing club, you get about 25 minutes to write and you will write something. You will get something done. You might think that it should be take you ages, but actually you've done your thinking and then you just sit and write it.
Brilliant. I'm glad you recommended that, because that's that is definitely a key book and a key lesson people think, especially like you say in the hustle culture, but sometimes we find in the entrepreneurial small business sort of thing, you've got to use every minute, you've got to do X, Y, and Z, and taking a bit of time to rest, to nap, to walk in the in outside, and to take any kind of opportunity. Even though we're saying it's rest, your brain is processing a lot of stuff in the background that you don't necessarily need to.
Yes, your subconscious is doing amazing things, and that's where the magic happens. The other book that I would recommend is Life Scale by Brian Solis, which, if you are interested in the conversation we were having earlier about algorithms and social media and how the online world keeps you hooked, it's a very eye-opening read, and I go back to it every now and again. The blurb on the back says, "Escape from the dark side of distractions to live a better life," and it's a very worthwhile read.
Definitely. Thank you very much. I will put links to those books in the comments of wherever you're finding this. Like I said, at the moment, we were talking to Rachel beforehand. This is going live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So I will put links to these books as well. Talking of links, where can people find out more about you and follow you, and potentially find out about coming along and listen to you talk next month?
So my website is rachelextance.com. So that's where you will find most of my stuff. And then I'm at Rachel Extance on LinkedIn, which is my main social media hangout.
Brilliant. Well, I'm glad we had another opportunity to chat. It's been great reconnecting again, chatting with you for a while. As I said, we've been connected and friends for a long time, and I'm glad we're still there. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we'll have Rachel on to have a chat. So it's lovely to speak to you. And
it's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Indeed, and we'll see you next time. So, for those who come across this, do please say hi. If you're coming to the end, I'd love to hear how you feel about some of the topics that Rachel has mentioned. And we will be doing this every Wednesday. There'll be another one next week. So hopefully by then we can say hi. In the meantime, have a great second half. And I hope your second half is your best half.